Lesson 2. How did the governmental programs designed to ease the economic problems of the Great Depression impact Georgia? For this lesson, we're still looking at Standard 8, analyzing the important events that occurred after World War I and their impact on Georgia. This lesson looks at Element D, discussing the effect of the New Deal in terms of the impact of the Civilian Conservation Corps, the Agricultural Adjustment Act, rural electrification, and Social Security. The terms that you need to know are the New Deal, Agricultural Adjustment Act, Civilian Conservation Corps, Rural Electrification Act, and Social Security Act. The key question that will help you answer the essential question is what national programs were developed to help restore economic balance to the South and the nation by Roosevelt's administration, and what were the results of these programs? Georgians were overwhelmingly supportive of President Franklin Roosevelt and his New Deal programs throughout the Great Depression. The New Deal programs provided aid and support to many poor Georgians. Though these programs did not end the Great Depression, they helped many poor Georgians cope during the difficult economic times. There were so many New Deal programs, and it's often referred to as the alphabet soup because each program was known by their acronym. What you see on the screen is a list of each of the programs. For our purposes, we're going to focus on 4 of them: the Civilian Conservation Corps, Rural Electrification, the Agricultural Adjustment Act, and the Social Security Act. One of the New Deal programs that had a major impact on the state was the Civilian Conservation Corps, or the CCC. The purpose of this program was to hire unemployed young men to work on public service projects. Some of these projects included erosion control, flood prevention, and public parks. Men who volunteered for this service signed 6-month contracts and were provided room and board. In addition, they also received $30 a month, 25 of which had to be sent back to their families. Of all the New Deal programs, this was probably the most successful and popular. Over the 9 years that it was in existence, over 3 million young men worked in the program and planted millions of trees throughout the country. However, once the U.S. entered World War II, these men changed out of their CCC uniforms and into military ones. In 1942, the CCC was disbanded. In Georgia, the CCC had a lasting impact. According to the New Georgia Encyclopedia, over 78,000 Georgians were employed by the CCC, and these men planted over 22 million trees and built or improved several state parks. These parks are still used today, including the historic battlefields such as Chickamauga and Kennesaw Mountain, and forest parks such as A.H. Stevens and Hard Labor Creek. Segregation was also incorporated in these federal groups. For example, an all-black CCC unit in Georgia helped to develop the infrastructure of the Okefenokee Wildlife Refuge. It is often said that while Roosevelt was staying at his home, the Little White House in Warm Springs, Georgia, he was shocked at the cost of his electric bill. According to the story, Roosevelt claimed that he paid less at his large home in New York than he did for his small home in Georgia. Whether this story is true or not, Roosevelt had an interest in bringing electricity to all parts of the country. In 1935, the Rural Electric Administration was established to do just that. Though many members of Congress and state governors, such as Eugene Talmadge, fought against this program, fearing it would lead to socialism, many farmers benefited from it. According to the New Deal Network, by 1939, there was a 25% increase in the number of rural households that had electricity, and for a reasonable price. If they could afford it, many farmers bought appliances that used electricity, which helped stimulate the economy. Since Georgia was a rural state during this time period, many Georgians also benefited from this program. 2 additional programs had a lasting effect on Georgians. The first was the Agricultural Adjustment Act, or the AAA. The basic premise of the AAA was that since so many farmers continued to grow crops such as cotton and tobacco during the Depression, driving the prices of these products down, the federal government offered to pay farmers not to grow those crops. This caused the price of agricultural products to rise, which helped the farmers make more money and eliminate surplus production. Yet, in many cases, this policy did more harm than good for sharecroppers and tenant farmers. Though the government told the landowner that the payments should be distributed to those who lived and worked the land, many landowners simply kept the money for themselves. The government could not enforce this rule, and as a result, many of the people who needed this aid never received it. Often, since the sharecropper or tenant farmer could not work the land, they were simply removed. This was one of the factors that led to urbanization and the end of sharecropping and tenant farming in the state of Georgia. The last program that had a lasting effect on Georgia was the Social Security Administration, or the SSA. Until 1935, those who were too old or unable to work were dependent on the charity of others. The Social Security Administration offers benefits to those over 65, those who are disabled, or those who are the survivors of a beneficiary who has died. This program is one of the longest running of the New Deal, and today most Georgians are connected to the Social Security Administration either through paying Social Security taxes or receiving Social Security benefits. So what do you do now? The first thing I want you to do is to write a response to the following question on your own piece of paper and then hang it on the bulletin board in the classroom. You might need to do a little more research to help you out, and some extra resources have been posted on Google Classroom. And the question is, what national programs were developed to help restore economic balance to the South and the nation by Roosevelt's administration, and what were the results of these programs? Then there's a task that's attached to Lesson 2 on Google Classroom. You'll need to complete that, which has you looking at several scenarios and matching the scenarios to one of the New Deal programs. And then don't forget about the element check for Element D, which is due by January 12th. The code will be posted along with in a separate lesson.